Hello guys and welcome back. So let's continue. We're going to start fracturing the geometry now, and I've imported the all the pieces that we need, and I've grouped them, combined them into separate files, but there's multiple groups inside, so we're gonna rely on using that as well. And this is the front and back wall, the bricks, and pretty much all the things related to the balcony surrounding, and the windows, concrete and borders, and then pretty much everything that makes sense to be together, in this case all the bricks and these blocks, the top bricks, and we're gonna separate them and deal with each one of them separately. So let's start here. I'm gonna isolate the front and back wall, and I'm gonna isolate the wall front. Okay, need this part first, and let's create a recursive fracture node, and let's put down a color node, and I'm gonna use it to visualize this guy. Center ID 1. Center ID 1. Okay, cool. Let's increase the number of points a bit for this guy, and I'm also going to increase the max points to 1,000, just in case I'm hitting that. Let's try 60. It's too high. The main idea is I want to get big blocks in the beginning, maybe 25, and then we're gonna divide those into subcomponents. Let's play with the noise a bit. I think it's too we're getting too much edge details now, and let's increase the frequency to 16, 16, and 16. Something like that. Maybe increase the roughness. Okay, and for the volume resolution, I'm gonna verify this. I'm gonna create a bound domain or a box, and let's do a VDB from Polygon, just to estimate the voxel size needed to get a decent volume out of this. Okay, so 0.01. Yeah, 0.01 seems to be good. Okay, cool. Let's copy this. And now we're gonna set it to, we're gonna leave that because it's we're gonna loop over center ID 1. And one important aspect with the geometry with Voronoi, the less attributes and groups you have on the mesh, the faster it's going to be, because the more attributes you have, the more processing the Voronoi node has to do to keep those data and separate the information. So what I'd like to do is I'm gonna clean up as much as possible. Attribute delete, and I'm gonna keep those. Actually, we don't have attributes that are unnecessary in this case. We have groups, however. So for the groups, I don't think any of them matters at this point, because we don't need them, and if we do, we can always go back and refracture the mesh. Okay, center ID 2, and let's increase the number of points to 60 and play with the amplitude. Yeah, here it's too much. Set this to 0.3, and increase the frequency 20 20 20, increase the number of points in case we're hitting a limit or anything like that, and the volume, let's increase that. Let's see how that looks. Okay, and let's change the seed just to get a different pattern. And there's an infinite amount of possibilities. I like this. I like this, the variation of the pieces we're getting. So I'm gonna use this for now. And definitely there's a lot of iteration to be done on this to get the best optimal result for the sim that you want. It's not just how it looks, it's how it's gonna behave. But so far I see a lot of cool separation. I see a continuous line like this with a T junction, and a lot of variation in terms of size and clustering. So these 5, there is a lot of variety here. It's not just one or uniform pattern. Okay, so we did that. Let's do another level, and this one I want to go finer. I want to separate these guys into many more pieces. And center ID 3. It's actually a very cool pattern. I like this, but these guys are too big. So when I get there, when I reach those guys, let's lower the jitter scale. Okay. And there's one feature that I'd like to add, is the ability to visualize the points, and it's something we can easily add. So probably we'll do that in the next video. And there is few features that we're going to add to this later when we need it. Okay, let's lower this 0.5, 0.2. Let's set this to 160. And I'm not liking these stretched pieces like this. I'd like to get something, that has a rounded volume overall. But few of these guys actually, they can help because they break, this block, for example, getting this chunk here. So that helps with chipping the edges of the pieces. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back here and increase the mid-level fracture. See how that looks. Let's lower this to 0.606. And just to remember you guys, this is not the final level of details that we're going to use. This is just for the primary sim. Okay, let's go back, or let's do a quick debug here. Center 1, 2, and 3. So 1, 2, and 3. I think 3 could be improved. So let's increase the scale to 2. See how that affects the look. Okay, set to 1. Too much jitter. And let's lower the volume to 0.05. Let's increase this to 220. And let's increase the mid-level again. I want to get more pieces, or smaller pieces. Cool. I like this. I like this pattern for sure. Very organic, a lot of separation. This part would probably cause some issues, especially that I know Kong is going to be pushing this area. So let's try a different seed. Okay, I'm going to increase the number of pieces a bit more. I'm trying to get the biggest piece to be not that big, but also be mindful that we don't get too many small pieces. I mean, we're going to have a system that checks for the size and only fracture the big guys. Yeah, this guy here I don't like too much. So let's play with the seed. Set this to 12. Cool. Yeah, I think this is going to work. Maybe this piece is a bit big, but overall I think you guys get the idea. So let's continue the back wall. This part here, I'm going to reuse the same setup. I just wanted to separate it so that we don't have to. We have more control. We don't have to have everything in one place. And let's put down a dot and let's use this guy. And let's see, we don't have to have the same resolution in front and back. And I actually want to make sure that they're not the same. And the back wall has lower resolution, so that's why we're not getting that much edge details, but it's not something that I need. We're not going to be looking at this directly, so I'm happy with this result. The bricks, I do not fracture the bricks. Worst case scenario, if we have to, we can increase their resolution later, add some details, but overall bricks are really hard and generally don't break. Maybe we can select few. If you guys want to go want to add another level of details, you can select few pieces and fracture them, but for now I don't think we have to do that. And let's see what we have here in terms of groups. So I'm gonna put down a delete node, a group delete node, and I'm going to keep this open and let's spin it. Okay, so bricks, I'm gonna delete that. I'm gonna delete bricks levels 1 and concrete back level 1. I'm deleting all the empty groups, or maybe I should just keep the one. Yeah, I should. So concrete rail, concrete railing boxes, concrete windows contour, and concrete windows holder level 1. Delete all, and then I'm going to put this symbol except these guys. Cool. Okay, so let's see what we have in these guys. And let me move this up here. So I'm gonna blast. Delete non-selected. I'm gonna call this small pillars. And I'd like to separate them like this because I want to fracture them in a way that makes sense for each of the groups. And I've prepared. I think I've tried to prepare and group everything so that They are by type and they make sense to be together. Windows, contour, and then Windows holders. Cool. Okay. Well, that's a good place to start. Is I'm gonna copy all of this. And I'm going to reuse these guys. Okay, and let's see what we have. Okay, so that's one. And I'm gonna delete them. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1. I like this. I like this separation. I think there is too much edge details happening. So like that piece there. So I'm gonna lower the amplitude of the noise. Okay, let's change the scale. Let's try 40. Cool. Okay, let's do one more. Let's use one more node and see how that looks. Yep. Looks pretty good. And remember, these guys are quite solid, so they're not gonna fall or fracture because they are small and very dense concrete. It's hard to break them, and they're gonna retain most of their core and get chipped or divided into big blocks. Just this guy I'm not happy with, so let's change the seed. This guy is not changing too much. Oh, it's because it's a first time fracture. Yeah. So let's increase this to 80. Yeah, I think this is fine. This is fine for now. Yep. So I'm gonna keep that. Okay, let's paste another copy of the nodes. So I'm gonna reuse the same set of nodes, and this time on these guys. And I wouldn't shy away from adding more resolution if I needed that, but for now I think all the geometry was prepared to work at the level at the resolution we need. I'm not going to change any of that. Cool. Yep, looks pretty good. And the triangulation definitely helps with this. The fact that the mesh is triangulated and divided as well. So that's something I always do to prepare the mesh for destruction, is to triangulate it. Actually, I'm pretty happy with this. I don't think I need another level on them. But let's take a look and see what this gives us. Come on. Yeah, I don't have a lot of memory in this machine, and when we do a lot of these fracture, everything is gonna add it to the memory live. So let's take a look. It's not that much. It's using 8.3, so I don't know why it's freezing like this. May have crashed. No, it did not. At least it didn't crash yet. So okay, let me pause and then I'll come back once we get back to this state. So the UI came back, and it was just it froze for a while, and I'm not so sure what's happening. I think the number of points were quite high here, so it took a long time for it to process that, but now it's back and I'm using a more reasonable number. And I've set this to 20, and I lowered the voxel size just in case this was causing some issues as well. And so far that's all I need from this guy. Okay, so here actually, yeah, so all this I'm going to merge them with these guys, these rails. I want to merge each one of them with this, and we don't have a group for this guy, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this one of the nodes, and I'm going to copy all the names and embed them here, and that's going to leave me with everything but what's grouped. So that should give me delete selected, so that should give me this. I should have made a group for this, but it's fine for now. So I'm gonna merge all these guys together because I want to fracture them as one object. Okay, and let's go here and let's copy the same one we used. And let's try, let's keep this to a reasonable number. I'm gonna lower this to 0.1 or 0.05 just to start with, and let's see what we have. Okay. So something I'm noticing now is that we are getting, you can see here, these guys are getting the same pattern. This is the same color, same color. We can use this, we can work with this, but what I would prefer to be able to do is to change the fracture so it's unique per each piece, basically. And if we put down a connectivity SOP and change this to, let's see if it like that, that's fine. So create a color node and random from attribute class, and let's see what we get. Okay, so I would prefer, instead of getting this, to change the fracture so it's unique per each one of these guys. And a quick way to do this is using a for each loop. So I'm gonna put down a for each connected piece. It's gonna create the connectivity node. I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna paste it. And I'm gonna create the meta node, and I'm gonna use add spare input so it's easier for me to read that. And I'm gonna change the seed based on the iteration number. Okay, so right now it's gonna go over each piece. In this case it's very small, but that's fine. And I'm gonna I'm gonna fracture that separately, and then we're gonna move on to the next piece. So detail -1, and the name of the attribute is iteration, and that's it. Let's take a look. We can obviously compile this because our node is can be added into either can be nested into another compiled block, but for now I think it's fine. We don't have a lot of pieces. Okay, and let's take a look at the color now. And we're getting too much fracture. Okay, so why is this? Let's see in the case of this piece. Okay, so that's a lot of pieces already. So let's lower this to 10, 2, 4. And I'm surprised that there is a lot of pieces. Here, so let's generate the color again. Just want to make sure that it's a prime color. Okay. So yeah, we don't have a lot of pieces. No, there is. Okay. Okay, let's run it one more time and see what we get. It's faster now because we're generating less points. And okay, let's connect this. And I'm not so sure why these guys are getting this kind of coloration. So let's do this again, or let's use an assemble node, create a name attribute, and let's take a look at that name attribute. Maybe something is happening with our geometry. Yeah, so the name, this is what the fracture looks like, and I'm not so sure why the center ID is getting these guys. Why the color is like this, especially for this block. So it could be that something is wrong with this mesh, and let's investigate this. Let's copy this guy. And I'm not going to use everything. I'm going to select this and this and this. Let's blast them. That's fine. And let's blast a few more pieces. This and this. And these two. Just so we get a sample from everything, so we can debug it. We can debug this properly. And let's copy this. Okay. And let's take a look. So something is wrong with this mesh, or either the mesh or the way our system is currently working. So let's try just the fracture, and it's not depending on any of this. And here it's working, but with the for each loop, it's not liking that. I think I may have an idea why this is happening. So let's try and add an X to these names. Add an X here. and this, that. Yeah, something is not working as I had hoped for it, and I'm not so sure why. So I'm gonna, for these guys, I'm gonna just separate them. I'm not going to include everything else with them, and we're gonna fracture them using one node, and maybe later once we finish fracturing everything, we can take a look at this and debug it in real time and show you guys what the problem may be. So for now, I'm gonna pause here and we're gonna continue in the next video. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in a bit.